I woke up in darkness and didn't recognize the ceiling. For a moment, I stayed perfectly still, staring upward while my mind struggled to catch up. The room felt wrong. Not dangerous. Just unfamiliar. The mattress beneath me was softer than anything I had ever slept on. The blanket was thick and warm. The air smelled faintly of cedarwood, leather, and expensive cologne. Then reality hit me. I sat upright. The ceiling stretched high above me. Floor-to-ceiling windows covered one wall. A modern fireplace glowed quietly across the room. Dark wood furniture stood polished and spotless. A city skyline shimmered beyond the glass. My heart stopped. This wasn't my apartment. This wasn't even a hotel room. This was a luxury penthouse suite. Panic flooded through me. I threw back the blanket and stumbled out of bed. My head spun immediately. The fever I'd been fighting for days still lingered. I grabbed the edge of the mattress to steady myself. Then I saw him. A man sat in a leather chair near the fireplace. Watching me, he looked completely awake, completely calm, and completely out of place in my nightmare. Black suit, dark hair, sharp jawline. The kind of confidence money couldn't buy because it came from having too much of it. I knew exactly who he was. Everyone did. Ethan Blackwood, founder and CEO of Blackwood Industries. Billionaire, business icon, the man every financial magazine seemed obsessed with. And somehow, I had spent the night in his bedroom. My stomach dropped. Oh my God. The words escaped before I could stop them. Ethan didn't move. You should sit down. His voice was calm, controlled. I took a step backward instead. No. You nearly fainted. I need to leave. You have a fever. I stared at him. Why wasn't he angry? Why wasn't he calling security? Why wasn't he demanding answers? Nothing about this made sense. The last thing I remembered was leaving the charity gala, where I worked as an event assistant. I'd been sick all week, but couldn't afford to miss work. Then the fever got worse. After that, everything became a blur. You collapsed, Ethan said, as if reading my thoughts. Our driver found you outside the hotel. I blinked. What? You were unconscious. I struggled to process the information. My doctor examined you. I looked around again. The room suddenly felt even more unreal. A billionaire had brought me home. A stranger. And instead of throwing me out, he had let me sleep in his own room. The situation made absolutely no sense. Neither did the way he kept looking at me. Not suspiciously. Not angrily. Almost thoughtfully. Like he was trying to solve a puzzle. I didn't know it then. But waking up in Ethan Blackwood's penthouse would become the beginning of the biggest scandal of his life. And the biggest turning point of mine. My name is Emma Carter. I was 22 years old. And this is the story of how waking up in a billionaire's bedroom changed my life forever. Welcome to Super Stories. I should have left immediately. Any sensible woman would have. Instead, I stood there staring at Ethan Blackwood while my legs threatened to give out beneath me. I can go home now, I said. The moment the words left my mouth, the room tilted. I grabbed the bedpost. Ethan was beside me before I realized he had moved. His hand steadied my arm. Strong, warm, careful. Not the way people touched someone beneath them. Not the way powerful men usually touched anyone. The contact lasted only a second before he stepped back. But it was enough to make my heart race. You need rest, he said. I need my job. His expression changed slightly. What job? I'm an event assistant. The gala last night. I nodded. Then you don't need to worry. I almost laughed. Easy for a billionaire to say. People like Ethan Blackwood never worried about rent, groceries, or overdue bills. People like me worried about them every day. You don't understand. His eyes narrowed slightly. Explain it to me. I hesitated. No one had ever asked me that before. Not seriously. Not like my answer mattered. If I miss work, I don't get paid. He remained silent. So I continued. If I don't get paid, I can't cover rent. Still silent. My mother depends on me. Something flickered across his face. The first real emotion I had seen from him. Concern. Not pity. Concern. Before he could respond, a woman entered the room. She was elegant, beautiful, and perfectly dressed despite it being barely 8 in the morning. The moment she saw me standing beside Ethan, her face froze. Then came the smile. The fake kind. The dangerous kind. Ethan, she said softly. I didn't realize you had company. The temperature in the room dropped instantly. Ethan's expression hardened. Victoria. So this was Victoria Sinclair. The woman every magazine expected Ethan to marry. The daughter of a billionaire investor. Beautiful, powerful, connected. And judging by the look she was giving me, she already hated me. Her eyes moved slowly over my oversized borrowed shirt, the bed behind me, my bare feet, then back to Ethan. I see. The words sounded innocent. They weren't. I suddenly felt exposed, like I had walked into a trap without realizing it. Victoria stepped closer. I was worried when your assistant said you came home early. Ethan didn't answer. I suppose now I know why. The accusation hung in the air. My face burned. That's not what happened. Victoria looked at me for the first time. Actually looked at me. And smiled. Oh, it wasn't a kind smile. It was the smile of someone who already believed she had won. Ethan found me unconscious, I said. He helped me. Victoria's smile widened. Of course he did. The way she said it made my stomach twist. She didn't believe me. Worse, she didn't care whether it was true, because the story she wanted was far more useful. For the first time since waking up, I realized something important. The biggest danger wasn't Ethan Blackwood. It was being seen standing next to him. Because in his world, appearances were worth millions. And I had just become the appearance nobody wanted. Victoria stayed for less than 5 minutes. It felt like an hour. The moment she left, the penthouse seemed easier to breathe in, but the damage had already been done. I could still see the look she gave me. The judgment, the suspicion, the certainty that someone like me did not belong anywhere near someone like Ethan Blackwood. I lowered my eyes. I'm sorry. Ethan frowned. For what? For causing problems. A strange expression crossed his face. You didn't. Victoria clearly thinks I did. Victoria thinks many things. His tone was colder than before. I wasn't sure if that should comfort me. A knock interrupted us. A man in his 40s entered carrying a tablet. Tall, professional, the kind of person who probably managed crises before breakfast. Good morning, Mr. Blackwood. Ethan nodded. What is it, James? The man hesitated, then glanced at me. My stomach tightened. Bad news. Definitely bad news. Several media outlets have received photographs. I felt my blood turn cold. Photographs? Ethan's jaw tightened. From where? The hotel entrance. I closed my eyes. Of course. The charity gala. The crowd. The reporters. The cameras. Someone must have photographed Ethan helping me. James continued. Most of the images show you carrying Miss Carter to your vehicle. I wanted the floor to swallow me. Victoria. It had to be Victoria. Or someone connected to her. Ethan looked completely calm. That somehow made everything worse. What are they saying? James handed him the tablet. Ethan read silently, then handed it to me. I wish he hadn't. The headline nearly stopped my heart. Mystery woman spends night with billionaire Ethan Blackwood. Below it were several photographs. One showed Ethan carrying me while I was unconscious. Another showed him helping me into his vehicle. Another showed my head resting against his shoulder. The article made it sound romantic, scandalous, intentional. None of it was true. Oh no. My voice came out barely above a whisper. Ethan took the tablet back. This is ridiculous. I looked at him. You may think so. He raised an eyebrow. I know so. You don't understand. I understand perfectly. No. For the first time since meeting him, I interrupted. The words came faster than I intended. You'll survive this. Silence. I swallowed hard. You're Ethan Blackwood. Neither man spoke. In 2 weeks people will forget. I pointed toward myself. They won't forget me. The room became very quiet. I hated that my voice was shaking, but I couldn't stop. People like me don't survive scandals. I laughed softly. A sad laugh. A billionaire gets headlines. I looked down at my hands. A woman like me loses her job. The truth hung between us. Heavy. Uncomfortable. Impossible to deny. James shifted awkwardly. But Ethan remained completely still. Then he spoke. You're not losing your job. I almost smiled. You don't know my boss. Then I'll speak to your boss. My eyes widened. No. Why not? Because that would make everything worse. For a moment he studied me. Really studied me. Then he said something that caught me completely off guard. How long have you been solving problems entirely by yourself? I blinked. What? You apologize for things that aren't your fault. I stared at him. You expect the worst before it happens. Neither of us looked away. And you act like asking for help is a crime. Something inside me cracked. Just a little. because no one had ever noticed that before. Not even me. Outside the penthouse windows, the city kept moving. But inside that room, for the first time, I realized Ethan Blackwood wasn't looking at me the way everyone else did. He wasn't seeing a scandal. He was seeing me. I didn't know whether that realization should comfort me or terrify me. Being invisible had never been pleasant, but it had been safe. People ignored invisible women. They didn't write articles about them. They didn't take photographs of them. And they certainly didn't connect their names to one of the most powerful men in the country. Yet somehow, that was exactly what had happened. James' phone buzzed. He checked the screen and sighed. It's spreading. Ethan folded his arms. How bad? 3 major entertainment sites have picked it up. 2 business publications are running the story within the hour. I felt sick again. Not from the fever. From panic. James looked at me sympathetically. Miss Carter, your social media accounts are private, correct? Yes. Good. The fact that he sounded relieved scared me. What happens if they're not? James exchanged a glance with Ethan. Neither answered immediately. That told me everything. People were already searching for me. Trying to find me. Trying to learn who I was. The idea made my skin crawl. I wasn't famous. I wasn't wealthy. I was a 22-year-old woman who worked long hours, paid bills, and worried about whether there would be enough money left at the end of the month. I wasn't prepared for public attention. No one could be. Another notification appeared on James' phone. This time his expression changed. Ethan. Something in his tone made both of us look up. What? James hesitated, then turned the screen around. It was another article. Only this one wasn't focused on Ethan. It was focused on me. The headline read, "Who is the woman who captured Ethan Blackwood's attention?" My stomach dropped. Underneath was my photograph. A photograph taken from my employee profile at the charity foundation. My full name. My workplace. Even the neighborhood where I lived. Oh my God. The words escaped before I could stop them. They knew everything. Or almost everything. Ethan's face darkened. For the first time since I'd met him, he looked genuinely angry. Not annoyed. Not irritated. Angry. Take it down. James nodded immediately. I'm already contacting legal. My head spun. This wasn't normal. This wasn't my life. I backed toward the chair beside the bed and sat down before my legs gave out. Ethan noticed immediately. You need water. I'm fine. You are not. The firmness in his voice made me look up. He walked to the kitchen area and returned with a glass. When he handed it to me, our fingers brushed. A tiny thing. Meaningless. Yet my pulse somehow accelerated. I quickly looked away. This was ridiculous. He was a billionaire. I was an event assistant. We lived in entirely different worlds. The only reason our paths had crossed was because I'd collapsed at the wrong place on the wrong night. That's all. It had to be. A few minutes later, Ethan's phone rang. He checked the caller ID. His expression hardened instantly. Victoria. I knew before he said the name. He answered. What? Even through the phone, I could hear her voice. Not the words. Just the tone. Sharp. Demanding. Accusing. Ethan listened for several seconds. Then his jaw tightened. No. Another pause. No. Longer pause. Then. Miss Carter will not be taking responsibility for something she didn't do. Silence filled the room. My heart pounded. Victoria was blaming me. Of course she was. When the call ended, Ethan placed the phone on the table. Neither of us spoke for a moment. Finally, I asked the question I already knew the answer to. She wants me gone, doesn't she? Ethan looked directly at me. His voice was calm. Steady. Certain. She doesn't get to decide that. And for reasons I couldn't explain, hearing those words made me feel safer than I had in a very long time. The rest of the morning passed in a blur. James worked nonstop from the living room, speaking with lawyers, publicists, and executives. Every few minutes another article appeared online. Every hour the story seemed to grow larger. What had begun as photographs outside a hotel was now being treated like national news. I sat near the window, staring at the city below. Thousands of people moved through the streets. Most of them had no idea who I was. Yet somehow strangers across the country were discussing my life. It felt unreal. My phone buzzed, then buzzed again. And again. I finally looked at the screen. 32 missed calls. 21 text messages. 3 voicemails. My stomach dropped. Most were from coworkers. Some were from people I barely knew. A few were from relatives who had not spoken to me in years. Fame was strange. People ignored you until they believed you mattered. Then suddenly everyone remembered your number. Another message appeared. This one was from my supervisor. Emma, call me immediately. I closed my eyes. There it was. The conversation I'd been dreading. Ethan noticed my expression. What happened? My boss. Call her. I laughed nervously. You say that like it won't be terrible. Maybe it won't. It will. He leaned back in his chair. You're assuming the outcome before hearing it. I hated that he was right. Slowly, I pressed the call button. The phone rang once. Twice. Then connected. Emma. My supervisor sounded exhausted. Yes. Are you all right? I blinked. That wasn't what I expected. I think so. Good. She sighed heavily. The office has been receiving calls all morning. Of course they had. I stared at the floor. I'm sorry. Stop apologizing. The words surprised me. Apparently Ethan wasn't the only person tired of hearing me say it. My supervisor continued. You didn't ask for this. No. We've told everyone that your private life is your business. Relief washed through me. Until she added. Unfortunately, several sponsors disagree. My heart sank. There it was. The catch. A long silence followed. Then she spoke carefully. I need you to take a few weeks off. The room seemed to shrink around me. A few weeks. Paid leave. I froze. What? Paid? I looked up. Ethan was watching me closely. We're not firing you, Emma. The tension inside me loosened slightly. But the attention is becoming disruptive. I understood. Even if it hurt. I'm sorry. My supervisor laughed softly. There it is again. Despite everything, I smiled. A little. When the call ended, I placed the phone down. Well? Ethan asked. I still have a job. His expression softened. Good. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then James entered the room carrying a folder. His face was serious. Not media crisis serious. Something else. Ethan. What is it? James placed the folder on the table. I think someone leaked Miss Carter's information intentionally. The room went silent. My stomach tightened. What do you mean intentionally? James opened the folder. Inside were printed screenshots. Emails. Phone records. Photographs. Evidence. Lots of evidence. He pointed to one page. The first article was published at 7:14 this morning. Then another. These emails were sent to reporters at 6:51. I frowned. So, James looked at me. Someone already had your information before the story broke. A cold feeling moved through me. Because that meant this wasn't random. This wasn't curiosity. Someone had planned it. Ethan's expression darkened. Who? James hesitated. Then slowly slid one final page across the table. At the top was a familiar name. Victoria Sinclair. For the first time since this nightmare began, I realized something. Victoria wasn't trying to protect Ethan. She wasn't trying to protect her reputation. She was trying to destroy mine. For several seconds, nobody spoke. I stared at the page. Victoria Sinclair. The name seemed impossible. Not because I doubted it. Because I couldn't understand why someone like her would care enough about someone like me. What exactly did she do? I asked quietly. James opened the folder again. One of the reporters forwarded us the original email. He pointed to a highlighted section. Your employee records. Your social media accounts. Your apartment address. Even information about your mother. My blood ran cold. My mother. Ethan's expression changed instantly. It wasn't anger anymore. It was something darker. More dangerous. How much information? James looked uncomfortable. Enough. I felt sick. My mother lived alone in a small town nearly 3 hours away. She hated attention. She hated strangers. The idea that people were digging into her life because of me was unbearable. I need to call her. I reached for my phone immediately. My hands were shaking. The call connected after the second ring. Emma. The familiar sound of her voice almost made me cry. Mom. Sweetheart, are you all right? That question broke my heart. Because she sounded worried. Not about herself. About me. I'm okay. You don't sound okay. I laughed weakly. Neither of us believed it. She sighed. The neighbors have been talking. Of course they had. Small towns survived on gossip. I don't care about that. I know. A pause. Are people bothering you? Another pause. Then she answered honestly. A few reporters came by. I closed my eyes. Beside me, Ethan's jaw tightened. But they're gone now, she continued quickly. Don't worry about me. That was exactly what mothers always said when you should worry. After the call ended, I sat silently staring at the floor. Ethan remained unusually quiet. Finally, he spoke. "This ends today." I looked up. "What does that mean?" "It means Victoria crossed a line." His voice was calm. Too calm. The kind of calm people have before storms. James nodded. "Our legal team is preparing action." I almost laughed. Legal teams. Publicists. Private investigators. This was billionaire warfare. An entirely different universe from mine. Yet somehow I was standing in the middle of it. My phone buzzed again. Another message. This time from an unknown number. I opened it. Immediately my stomach dropped. The text contained only one sentence. "You should have stayed in your place." No name. No explanation. Just that. Cold fear crawled down my spine. Ethan noticed my expression. "What happened?" Without speaking, I handed him the phone. His face hardened instantly. James read the message over his shoulder. "Wonderful." The sarcasm was obvious. I swallowed hard. Maybe they're right. Both men looked at me. I regretted the words immediately, but they were already out. Maybe this is my fault. Ethan stood so suddenly that I flinched. His eyes locked onto mine. "No." The single word filled the room. "You collapsed because you were sick." Silence. "I brought you here because you needed help." More silence. "And someone decided to exploit that situation." His voice softened slightly. "But none of that is your fault." I looked away, because believing him felt dangerous. Hope always did. Ethan stepped closer. Not enough to invade my space. Just enough to make sure I heard him. "Emma." Slowly, I met his eyes. "You don't deserve what's happening." For a moment, I couldn't speak. Because no one had ever said that to me before. Not when things went wrong. Not when life became unfair. Not when I needed to hear it most. And somehow, hearing it from Ethan Blackwood made me realize something. For the first time in years, someone was standing beside me instead of waiting for me to fall. The next morning, I woke up before sunrise. For a few seconds, everything felt normal. Then I remembered where I was. Ethan Blackwood's penthouse. The headlines. Victoria. The threats. The reporters. My life had become unrecognizable in less than a week. I sat on the edge of the bed and rubbed my eyes. The fever was finally gone. Physically, I felt better. Emotionally, I felt exhausted. A soft knock sounded at the door. "Come in." Mrs. Harper, the housekeeper, entered carrying breakfast. She smiled warmly. "Good morning, Miss Carter." I still wasn't used to people calling me that. Not here. Not in a place where everyone wore tailored suits and moved with effortless confidence. "Good morning." She set the tray down. "Mr. Blackwood asked me to make sure you ate." I smiled despite myself. "He really doesn't give up, does he?" Mrs. Harper laughed. "No." Then she hesitated. "As someone who has worked for him for 12 years, I can tell you that's unusual." I frowned. "What is?" "The worrying." Before I could ask what she meant, she excused herself and left. The words stayed with me. The worrying. Was Ethan worried about me? The thought felt strange. Dangerous. I pushed it aside. A few hours later, I entered the living room and found Ethan staring out at the city. He looked tired. For the first time since I'd met him, genuinely tired. His tie was loosened. His sleeves rolled up. Several folders sat open on the table beside him. He turned when he heard me. "How are you feeling?" "Better." "Good." I walked closer. "What happened?" His expression darkened slightly. "Victoria held a press conference." I blinked. "A press conference?" "Yes." "That couldn't be good." "What did she say?" Ethan gave a humorless laugh. "According to Victoria, she's the victim." Of course she was. People like Victoria never saw themselves as villains. Only misunderstood heroes. I sat down across from him. "What now?" Instead of answering, Ethan slid a tablet toward me. I looked down. My stomach dropped. Victoria stood in front of dozens of cameras. Elegant. Composed. Perfect. "I only hope Mr. Blackwood finds peace," she was saying. The reporter asked another question. "Do you believe your relationship was affected by Emma Carter?" Victoria lowered her eyes dramatically. "I don't wish to speak negatively about anyone." The lie was so obvious it almost impressed me. Another reporter spoke. "Did Miss Carter intentionally interfere in your relationship?" Victoria sighed. The performance deserved an award. "I believe some people are willing to do anything to improve their circumstances." I stared at the screen. Speechless. She was blaming me. Publicly. Directly. And she was doing it with a smile. Ethan took the tablet back. She's trying to control the narrative. I laughed bitterly. She's succeeding. No. I looked at him. No. His eyes were steady. She's panicking. I frowned. What makes you think that? For the first time all morning, a small smile appeared on his face. Not warm. Not pleasant. Strategic. Because people who are winning don't usually lie this much. Before I could respond, James entered the room. He looked more excited than stressed for once. Ethan, what is it? James grinned. We found the source of the financial transfers. The room went silent. Immediately, Ethan stood. So it's confirmed? James nodded. Every last dollar. I looked between them. What financial transfers? Neither man answered immediately. Then Ethan looked at me. The reason Victoria is desperate. And suddenly I knew. This was never just about me. I had accidentally become part of something much bigger. I stared at Ethan. What exactly have I become part of? James closed the office door behind him and placed a thick folder on the table. The smile had disappeared from his face. Now he looked serious again. The financial investigation is complete. Ethan remained standing. Tell me. James opened the folder. For the last 3 years, funds have been quietly moved through several shell companies connected to Sinclair Holdings. My heart sank. Victoria's family company. How much money? I asked. James looked down at the documents. Just over $82 million. The number hit me like a physical blow. 82 million. I couldn't even imagine that amount of money. Ethan's expression hardened. And Victoria knew? James nodded. We can't prove she initiated it. A pause. But we can prove she helped conceal it. The room became very quiet. I finally understood. This wasn't about jealousy. This wasn't about a billionaire and a mystery woman. Victoria wasn't attacking me because she loved Ethan. She was attacking me because I had become a distraction. A shield. Something for the public to focus on while she protected herself. She used me, I whispered. Ethan looked at me. Yes. There was no point pretending otherwise. The truth hurt enough on its own. James continued. The press conference wasn't about defending her reputation. It was about changing the story, Ethan said. Exactly. Everything suddenly made sense. The headlines. The leaks. The rumors. The threats. The reporters outside my mother's house. Victoria had created chaos because chaos made people stop asking questions. And while everyone talked about me, nobody talked about $82 million. A cold feeling settled in my stomach. What happens now? Ethan looked toward the city skyline. Then back at me. The truth happens. That afternoon, everything exploded. Major news networks picked up the financial investigation. Business reporters began digging into Sinclair Holdings. Investors demanded answers. Board members started resigning. For the first time since this nightmare began, my name wasn't leading the headlines. Victoria's was. By evening, social media had turned against her. People who had praised her 2 days earlier were suddenly criticizing her. The speed was shocking. One moment she was untouchable. The next, she was the center of a scandal. I sat in the penthouse living room watching the coverage. Part of me felt relieved. Another part felt sad. Not for Victoria. For the way people change sides so quickly. Ethan sat across from me. Quiet. Thoughtful. What are you thinking? He asked. I looked at the television. How fast everything changes. He nodded slowly. That's power. I frowned. What do you mean? The public doesn't decide what's true. His eyes remained on the screen. They decide what's popular. The statement lingered between us. Because it was true. When Victoria controlled the story, everyone believed her. Now that the evidence had surfaced, everyone acted like they had known all along. Neither version was completely honest. A notification appeared on my phone. Then another. Then dozens more. I looked down. For the first time all week, the messages weren't hateful. They were apologetic. Supportive. Encouraging. Strangers were defending me. My eyes widened. What's wrong? I showed Ethan the screen. He read a few messages and smiled faintly. You see. See what? The truth eventually catches up. I smiled for the first time in days. A real smile. Not forced. Not nervous. Real. And for the first time since waking up in Ethan Blackwood's bedroom, I felt something unexpected. Hope. Hope felt unfamiliar. I wasn't sure what to do with it. For most of my life, I had survived by expecting very little. If something good happened, it was a bonus. If something bad happened, at least I was prepared. Hope required trust, and trust had never come easily to me. 3 days later, the investigation into Sinclair Holdings dominated every major business network in the country. The evidence was overwhelming. Financial records, emails, hidden transfers, witness statements. There was nowhere left for Victoria to hide. Yet somehow I still felt nervous, because people like Victoria rarely accepted defeat quietly. That feeling proved correct on a rainy Thursday afternoon. James entered the penthouse carrying a sealed envelope. His expression immediately told me something was wrong. Ethan looked up from his laptop. What happened? James handed him the envelope. It arrived 10 minutes ago. Ethan opened it. As he read, his jaw tightened. What is it? I asked. For several seconds, neither man answered. Then Ethan handed me the letter. My stomach dropped. It was from Victoria. Not an apology. Not an explanation. A threat. She claimed I had manipulated Ethan. She accused me of helping spread false information. She threatened legal action. I read the letter twice. Then a third time. The accusations were ridiculous. Completely absurd. Yet my hands still shook. Because I knew people like Victoria. They didn't need truth. They only needed influence. I don't understand. Ethan's expression remained calm. She's desperate. She can't actually believe this. No. His answer came immediately. Then why write it? James answered before Ethan could. Because if she admits responsibility, everything falls on her. I slowly lowered the letter. So she's looking for someone else to blame. Exactly. For a moment, anger replaced fear. Not explosive anger. The quiet kind. The kind that settles deep inside you. I had spent weeks being blamed for things I didn't do. Weeks defending myself against lies. Weeks watching powerful people use my life as a tool. And suddenly I was tired of it. Very tired. Ethan must have seen the change in my expression, because a small smile appeared on his face. What? I asked. You finally look angry. I laughed despite myself. Shouldn't I be? Probably. The smile remained. And for the first time I realized something. Ethan looked happier. Lighter. As though the walls he carried around himself were slowly disappearing. That evening, Victoria held another press conference. It lasted less than 7 minutes. The reporters came prepared. Questions about the missing money. Questions about the evidence. Questions she couldn't answer. The confidence she once carried was gone. By the end, even she seemed to know it. The story was over. The truth had won. Not because it was louder. Not because it was stronger. Because it was real. Later that night, I stood beside the penthouse windows overlooking the city. The lights stretched endlessly into the distance. Behind me, Ethan approached quietly. Neither of us spoke for a moment. Then he said something unexpected. You know, all of this started because I found you unconscious outside a hotel. I laughed softly. When you say it like that, it sounds ridiculous. It was ridiculous. I turned toward him. For a second, neither of us looked away. And in that moment, I realized my life was about to change again. Not because of a scandal. Not because of headlines. But because sometimes the people who enter your life unexpectedly become the people who matter most. A year later, my life looked nothing like it had on the night I collapsed outside that hotel. Sometimes I still thought about that version of myself. The exhausted girl working long hours, skipping meals, worrying about rent, and carrying every problem alone because she believed asking for help was weakness. Back then, I thought survival was enough. I didn't realize there was a difference between surviving and living. The scandal that once felt like the end of my world eventually faded. As scandals always do. New headlines appeared. New stories replaced old ones. People moved on. But the people who truly mattered stayed. My mother was safe. My career recovered. In fact, it became stronger than before. Several organizations offered me new opportunities after learning how I had handled the situation. Not because I was famous, but because I had remained honest when lying would have been easier. Victoria Sinclair's story ended very differently. The investigations continued. Her family's company suffered enormous losses. Several executives resigned. Investors disappeared. The empire she spent years protecting began collapsing under the weight of its own secrets. In the end, it wasn't Emma Carter who destroyed Victoria. It was the truth. Truth has a strange way of doing that. As for Ethan Blackwood, the man the world called cold, People finally started seeing what I had discovered from the beginning. He wasn't cold. He was careful. There is a difference. Cold people don't help strangers. Cold people don't protect someone when there's nothing to gain. Cold people don't risk their reputation for what's right. The world often mistakes kindness for weakness and caution for arrogance. I know better now. One evening, nearly a year after everything happened, Ethan and I stood on the balcony of the same penthouse where this story began. The city lights stretched endlessly beneath us. For a while, neither of us spoke. Then Ethan smiled. "Do you ever think about that first night?" I laughed. "The one where I accidentally became national news. That one." I shook my head. "Honestly, what? If someone had told me how all of this would turn out, I would never have believed them." He smiled. "Neither would I." The truth was simple. A terrible night had led to an unexpected future. A moment of weakness had revealed unexpected strength. And a stranger had become someone I trusted completely. Looking back now, I learned something I will never forget. We spend so much time judging people by appearances, by titles, by money, by status, by what they have instead of who they are. But appearances are easy to fake. Character isn't. The people who looked down on me because I had less money turned out to have the least integrity. The man everyone believed was untouchable turned out to have the kindest heart. And the worst moment of my life became the beginning of my best one. So if there's one lesson I hope you take from my story, it's this. Never underestimate yourself because of where you started. Never assume someone's worth based on their position. And never judge a person by what the world says about them. Judge them by how they treat people when nobody is watching. Because true character isn't revealed through wealth, power, or success. It's revealed through compassion. Moral of the story. The strongest people are not the ones with the most money or influence. They are the ones who choose kindness when cruelty would be easier, honesty when deception would be more profitable, and compassion when they have every reason to walk away. My name is Emma Carter, and this is the story of how waking up in a billionaire's bedroom changed my life forever.